already played and reviewed every single Far Cry game on this channel in the last year, and every single time in the end of the video I talked to you about whether I would recommend this game or not. But in today's video I'll do something different, because I'll be talking about whether the whole journey of Far Cry, playing every single game from Far Cry 1 until Far Cry 6, was actually worth it or not. And if you're thinking whether to start playing Far Cry from the first game and finish with the 6th, so play every single one, this video is right for you. Well, first things first, I have to say that the Far Cry games are not something that you will play once in your life and never again. There are a lot of other games that share the same gameplay mechanics and the same approach that the Far Cry games do. However, it's still kind of unique in its own ways, but that is already the first thing that I'm going to talk about in this video. The gameplay loop of Far Cry doesn't really change. It becomes very repetitive after some times, and after spending 50-60 hours it might be a little bit dreadful to continue playing in the same old mechanic, because when you compare Far Cry 6 to, let's say, Far Cry 3 and really compare the gameplay loop, there isn't a lot that has changed in that time. I mean, don't get me wrong, the core gameplay of Far Cry is definitely a lot of fun, and in the beginning Ubisoft also had a lot of success with it, and the fans actually loved the whole Ubisoft formula and how the games played themselves. However, as I said, it's been a long time since, and now in 2024 it will become very repetitive. And I noticed that especially in the last couple of games I was kind of fed up with the same old gameplay mechanics and the same old gameplay loop from the Far Cry games. The sandbox style gameplay in Far Cry also stays kind of the same, but in all honesty that, in my opinion, is a very good thing. You know, the games give you a lot of freedom to approach objectives and complete missions in your own way, so you know whether you're playing in a stealthy way or whether you're just going full force with all you got, killing everyone and everything around you. It's pretty much up to you how you play this game. But now I'll divide this video into two parts, you know. One recommendation will be more for the casual gamers, and the other one will be more for the hardcore first-person shooter fans. So when it comes to the casual gamers, so let's say you play a couple of games each year, you don't really have a type of games that you play. Sometimes you play open world games, sometimes you play indie games, sometimes it's strategy games, and you just want to play a Far Cry game and figure it out if you like it. Then, well, I would not necessarily recommend the first two Far Cry games for that. I would start with Far Cry 3, because Far Cry 3 is definitely one of the best Far Cries in the whole franchise. It has one of the best antagonists of all time when it comes to video games, and that was really the Far Cry game that was the big breakthrough when it came to Ubisoft's Far Cry success. And I think I could recommend Far Cry 3 to literally anybody. It has a good story, it has a wonderful open world, and as I said, great characters, the best in the whole series. So Far Cry 3 definitely gets a recommendation. If you're a casuals fan and thinking about playing the Far Cry games, Far Cry 3 is definitely a great way to start. And then it will be up to you, because two other games that I would recommend even for casual gamers though are Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 5, because those games again will not take hundreds of hours of time, and they both have incredible open worlds, great antagonists, and I think from Far Cry 3 to Far Cry 5 is really where the prime of the Far Cry franchise was. And if I would have to recommend 3 Far Cry games, it would definitely be 3, 4 and 5. And obviously in that time period from Far Cry 3 to Far Cry 5 we also had Far Cry Primal from 2016, which is one of my favorite Far Cry games, in my opinion the most underrated one. However, it is something completely different, you know. It doesn't have any guns, any explosions. It's literally a completely different Far Cry experience, and I would definitely recommend it. But if I would have to recommend 3 Far Cry games, I would stick with 3, 4 and 5. And if you finish those and you're actually thinking about playing New Dawn or Far Cry 6, well, it won't get better than those 3 games, so it probably would be a good idea to stop playing the Far Cry games if you're not 100% determined to play every single Far Cry game like I was, for example. Okay, so now what would I recommend to the hardcore fan, you know, to players that absolutely love those kinds of games, you know, first-person shooters, but still with some open-world exploration. In that sense, I still would not be able to recommend every single Far Cry game. I would add Far Cry 2, Far Cry Primal, and Far Cry 6 though, because those are also relatively good games, nothing to compare to Far Cry 3, 4 and 5 in my opinion, but still you will have a lot of fun playing those games. Now Far Cry 1 in my experience was almost completely unplayable, you know, there were a lot of moments where the NPCs completely wall-hacked me through every single wall, you know, they were just shooting me through walls literally, and it was getting quite unplayable after some times. And I think that there are some mods that actually fix that problem, but if you just buy the Steam version of Far Cry 1, it's not the best experience, and the story is also something that you don't really have to have experienced in your life. And Far Cry New Dawn really is just the small, weak, scared little brother of Far Cry 5, you know, that tried to make it sequel to Far Cry 5. It's nothing of that, you know, it becomes boring very, very quickly, and there are not really any characters that you remember apart from the father, which was the antagonist from Far Cry 5. So I wouldn't really be able to recommend Far Cry New Dawn either. But Far Cry 2 and Far Cry 6, in my opinion, for those, you know, hardcore fans, are also games that they will have a lot of fun in, especially Far Cry 2 in my opinion, that gives you this sense of nostalgia. Even though I have never played that game before, I still had that very warm feeling of nostalgia while playing this game. And Far Cry 6 also, in my opinion, was probably a step in the right direction and an antagonist that you could remember. And the story was definitely a lot better than from other Far Cry games. And well, the open world of Yara is also extremely beautiful, but it still becomes quite repetitive very quickly, and it's definitely not one of the best Far Cry games that you'll play. But if that's not a problem for you, and if you're really a fan of first-person shooters, Far Cry 6 will also be a great experience. So after playing every single Far Cry game, I would still say that was a nice experience, you know, having played every Far Cry game, but in all honesty, it was all just for the sake of having played every Far Cry game, you know, it was not like I was generally interested in every Far Cry game. But after playing every single one, to sum up this video, I would say that Far Cry 3, 4 and 5 are 100% recommendations from the bottom of my heart. You know, if you have not played for any Far Cry games and you just want to get the best of the best for not a lot of money in today's day and age, Far Cry 3, 4 and 5 are literally the best Far Cry games that you're able to play. And as I said, Far Cry 1 and Far Cry New Dawn will definitely not get a recommendation from me. The other Far Cry games are Far Cry 2, Far Cry 6 and especially Far Cry Primal could also be a lot of fun if you are a fan of first-person shooters like I am. So for those people who have already played the Far Cry games, what is your opinion on that topic? Do you also see it similarly to me, or do you have a completely different opinion on which Far Cry games are actually worth it? As always, put your opinion down in the comments and I'll be very happy to hear it. Alright guys, that was it from me in today's video. I wish you all an amazing day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.